It's been about a week since I hit you with an unpopular opinion video, and the last one we did was Hal Jordan's Green Lantern. Today, we're going to be doing Barry Allen's Flash. Now, I'm sure with certain people's opinions, Wally will be tied into their opinion of Barry. I mean, I've already seen a couple of those already, but let's dive into some of these comments and see what some of you had to say. The first comment we're going to start with is Claire Bushnell. The Flash is so powerful, he has to be constantly powered down in other heroes' comics. In Tom King's run on Batman, where Poison Ivy was controlling the Flash, Catwoman took him down with one punch while he was running at her full speed. DC needs to find a way to make him more consistent. Other than that, one of my favorite heroes of all time. So it's really interesting because I think if you look across the history of DC Comics, hell, even if you go over to Marvel Comics, there's a lot of inconsistency issues, and these characters are written very specifically on the idea of which the writer has in mind. So very specifically, Tom King clearly had this interest of just how good Catwoman is, even though that plays with our vast disbelief that Catwoman would never be able to do something like that. Well, now it's just been proven that she can attack and successfully hit the Flash when he's moving at the speed of light. And I agree, there are instances such as this where the Flash is getting hit by Catwoman, but then in his next comic book issue, he's defeating Professor Zoom, who has a crazy Speed Force upgrade that's made him 10 times faster than Barry Allen, and Barry Allen still finds a way to defeat him and save the multiverse. I do feel like the Flash is really known for his inconsistencies when it comes to his speed. Roderick says, I think the Flash is the most powerful character in the DC universe, up there with characters like the Spectre, the Phantom Stranger, and Dr. Manhattan, because the Flash can change whole universes and travel through time, through the multiverse, and it's kind of like a godlike power. And if the Flash wanted to take out characters like the Spectre, the Phantom, and Dr. Manhattan, he would simply have to stop them from ever existing. Yeah, I mean, I think over the years too, even within his inconsistencies, we've seen how powerful the Flash can actually be. So powerful that some people today actually would take the Flash over Superman in a fight. I mean, I still wouldn't. I still think Superman would be able to take the Flash. But when it comes to God type of powers, this God type of presence, if you're gonna throw Superman in that kind of category, I think you have to throw the Flash in that category too, because like you said, of his multiversal powers, the fact that he can run to different timelines or change universes, that's huge. The only thing I think of when it comes to Dr. Manhattan, though, is I believe he lives on a spectrum that we cannot comprehend. He's alive in every world, in every dimension, at the same time as the time we're currently in right now. He would be able to do simple things like snap his fingers, and whatever the Flash is trying to do to him, Dr. Manhattan has now reverted that process. Although, let's be honest here, these are comic books. Writers will come up with any excuse in any story to make something like that happen if they really wanted it to. Riot Rioter says, the Flash's weaknesses and losses don't usually make sense. For a man who can run at speeds much faster than the speed of light and can vibrate through damn near anything, he is overpowered. His only weakness is the writers. If he wanted to, he could become a god on Earth and probably one of the most powerful beings in DC Comics, not including omnipotent characters. But as a character, I like him. Despite being so powerful, he still has his own problems, and the new 52 suit is is pretty good. I don't get why people hate it. Also, Crisis on Infinite Earths and Flashpoint are some of the best comics I've read. Additionally, he has a really good rogues gallery, probably among the top 5 best rogue galleries. Exactly as I was saying earlier about these past 2 comments, the writers are the dictators of how these stories play out and what we end up seeing drawn on comic book panels. And at the end of the day, whatever the writer chooses to do with these stories, whether we love it or hate it, that's their story. Nothing can erase that or rewrite it anymore, unless some other writer in the future wants to use that storyline and, rewrite it through a multi-dimensional storyline like we get 24/7 nowadays. Like you're explaining, he can run at rates far faster than the speed of light, he can vibrate through objects, but then sometimes he gets blindsided and hit out of nowhere, or he gets hit by somebody who isn't even moving at a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the speed of light. There are inconsistencies, and it's all dependent on the writer. There are a lot of instances where the Justice League may have to fight a particular villain, and you could honestly say Superman on his own could potentially handle that. I think you have to look at Flash the same way. Given his inconsistencies, he's so stupidly powerful that sometimes he should be able to handle these threats on his own. But you go on to say, despite how powerful he is, he still has his own problems. And I agree, despite his inconsistencies, despite how weirdly powerful they make him sometimes and how weirdly easy they can make it to beat him, he is still a fantastic character because when he's written at his best, he is the best. Rhino Machinima. This is going to be a hot take to some, but to me, it's just the truth. Barry Allen is only as popular as he is because of the CW show. Wally has the personality that most people, even official media, associate with the Flash. But most casuals don't know the difference between Wally and Barry, so now Barry has become an amalgamation of both characters, and Wally has become a shell of his former self. Yeah, I think that is very true. And especially someone like me who grew up with the Justice League animated series and grew up loving the version of Wally as the Flash, it is easy to tell that when they use Barry in a lot of forms of media today, he's very Wally-esque with the name of Barry Allen. The only representation of the character, as you have said, that really contains the Barry attributes is the CW Flash. And I'm not even a fan of that show, but Grant Gustin does a solid job. When you look at the Justice League and when you look at how the Flash fits into the league, it's always good to have at least that one character who's going to be a little more comedic than others. Wally is the version of the Flash that will give that to you. Barry is maybe a little bit awkward, but he's not the comedian the way Wally is. User M says, I do not like him fighting Speedster villains so much of the time. Nothing against Reverse Flash, but Gorilla Grodd and the Rogues are much more interesting and conducive to new and fresh ideas. The Flash is marketed as the fastest man alive, so challenging that aspect of him in such a basic way is not entertaining, and we all know exactly how it'll go from the start. I still like Reverse Flash, just not the idea of the main villain being a speedster. It's at the point where if I made an entire trilogy of Flash movies, I wouldn't include any speedster villain. I do get what you're saying. Facing a speedster with another speedster is just the usual. It's too obvious. Sometimes, though, having your greatest strength faced against you can be your greatest weakness, and I think that can go the same way for someone like Superman. A lot of the times he does get faced against other very powerful beings who can in turn actually beat him, such as Doomsday. If written properly, it can work, but I completely understand why you wouldn't want to deal with a speedster in any of your films. You would want to go with some of the more obscure younger characters. I mean, Gorilla Grodd is a great one to go against. You also, of course, have Captain Cold and Heatwave. Mirror Master is a huge character that I'm surprised has never even been dealt with or even talked about being dealt with at least once. I do think if I were to make a trilogy of Flash films, at least one of them would have to deal with a speedster, but I completely understand what you're saying. Erk's Collectible says too many iterations of Barry Allen categorize him as the funny comedic relief when he isn't like that in the comics. That's Wally. Exactly what I was saying earlier when I was talking about Rhino Machinima's Comet. These are two different characters, and for some reason over the years they've realized how many people actually like the personality and attributes of Wally instead of just capitalizing more on Wally and maybe making Wally the new face of the Flash. They've given a lot of his attributes to Barry Allen, and I just don't think that's the right move. PJ Machine, Flash has probably the fourth or the third best rogues gallery of Marvel and DC, even if half of his villains wouldn't realistically be a threat to Flash because he's so OP. You and many other people in this comment section talking about how he is overly powered, and maybe not in the best ways, maybe he needs to be toned down a little bit. Regardless, that doesn't take away from how unique and interesting his rogues gallery actually is. There are some great villains for great characters out in the comic universe. I think the people, of course, that would be ahead of the Flash is Batman and Spider-Man, and then probably in third place you would give it to Superman. So then yes, I would say Flash probably comes fourth. Outside of speedsters, my favorite Flash villains would probably fall to Gorilla Grodd and Mirror Master. I know that maybe having speedster villains for a speedster is not always the most fun, but there are so many cool variations of speedsters to actually like. It goes far beyond Professor Zoom. There's Savitar, there's Black Flash, there's Godspeed, there's even Zoom, which is a different variation of Professor Zoom. So there is a lot there to really get interested in for the Flash Rogues Gallery. Barnabas Galanti says, Barry Allen is really overused these days. I like Wally West more, but he hardly ever gets a bigger role. I think the DCU should either have Wally as the main Flash like the Justice League animated series did, or they should have both Barry and Wally in there, the way they could have Barry sacrifice himself to save everything. This would also allow DC to get rid of Ezra Miller. Terrible casting for Barry, by the way. Once again, comes down to, I think, how many people actually prefer Wally over Barry, and just the fact that for some reason DC really tries to push you on Barry, even though knowing more people like Wally, and they still give Barry's attitude and personality the Wally effect, which is just really weird decision making. Like you say about Ezra Miller in the DCEU, I gotta be honest here. As much as I love Zack Snyder and as much as I love all three movies he gave us, what I will say is Ezra Miller, I'm not overly fond of that casting choice. I don't think it was the right way to go for Barry. And once again, they did what some of you have been saying and what I'm saying. They gave that Barry Allen the Wally West effect. And if they choose to go with Barry in the future, I think he needs to be far more toned down than what we've been getting from Barry in a lot of different mediums. Delta Production says, I feel like the Flash is more recognizable than Wonder Woman. Potentially the hottest take of the hot takes on this hot take post. Maybe when you look at it in the generation we're in today, people are probably more interested to see things about the Flash than they are Wonder Woman. Also, when you look at the Flash, I think people are more interested in his abilities and his powers rather than Wonder Woman's. Once again, I do think that it comes down to the historical influence that these characters have played onto comic books and onto fans like us and just people in general around the world. And I do think that Wonder Woman holds much more stock as a whole than the Flash, but there is an argument to be made that maybe the Flash right now is a little more interesting than Wonder Woman. Although, if you did go to countries where maybe comic books aren't huge like the way it is in the Western society, and you showed them pictures of Wonder Woman and Flash, I do think more people would recognize Wonder Woman over the Flash. But it is an interesting conversation to have. Now, before we get into my bold opinion and hot take on Barry Allen Flash, I would like to invite Edward Rigby to speak on some of his thoughts about Barry Allen and the Flash in general. He is a YouTuber that talks about comic books, talks about movies, and even narrates comic books. He also does music. I will leave his link in the description below. Go show him some love, go show him some support, even hit that subscribe button for him. But now let's see what Edward has to say.
The Flash.
The fastest man alive.
Hey, I'm Eddie, and I want to give my 2 cents on The Flash real quick.
Quick as the Flash.
Well, it's more so on the live-action adaptations of The Flash, specifically. Stop surrounding him with lightning. He is fast. Let him be fast. Not with the form of an ice skater as lightning shoots off him or whatever was going on in the DCEU. Not with trails of lightning like on the TV show, but him running normally super fast. Unironically, the best speedster we've seen in a film is Dash. Motherfucking Dash. He's about slow as shit compared to the Flash. I want to see limbs moving ridiculously fast and with no lightning. Now, I think that there should be an exception. When he runs fast enough to actually generate electricity, and to keep it simple, I've done the math. I'm no science guy, but get this. Electricity can be generated at the speed of 270,000 kilometers per second. Through simple math, that's 972 million kilometers per hour. The speed of light is roughly 1 billion kilometers per hour, a bit less. Again, using simple math, we can see that lightning can be generated under the speed of light. So if he's going fast as hell, almost or even when he travels through time, sure, add lightning, but not all the time.
Oh my god.
But also, the science doesn't matter. I just need an excuse to say why there shouldn't be lightning all the time. Fucking, he's the Flash. He's not red lightning. And sorry to go on, but this is the real kicker. The faster the Flash is, the less interesting he becomes. He's less of a person the more he flashes. Instead of super speedy adventures stopping criminals, he's running through time all the time, and it's being stale. Why are we eating this stale bread? It's off. And here's a prime example. It's from Kingdom Come. And if you think that's a bad example because it's not a mainline book,
Shut the hell up, man.
the Flash in this is the Flash 24/7, and he's always in a red blur because he's always doing the Flash. Cool concept, but if he had his own book, it would be the most boring thing ever. What will we get? Inner monologue for the duration of the story as he runs with nothing posing a threat to him? Damn. I'd rather get 3 more Batman reboots. Let him be fast, but not too fast all the time. And especially no lightning. And I know what you're thinking.
But it's a comic book world. Why do you want everything to be so serious and real?
I want Batman's main partner to be a 10-year-old boy who wears bright colors and little Robin Hood boots. Anyways, a huge thanks to Tyrell for letting me be in this video. Cheers.
Well, Edward, you're very welcome. I'm really happy you are capable of making a segment for this video, but it's funny, I never really took that in. I never really thought about that before. The lightning is a very interesting aesthetic to the character of the Flash because it does show how fast he can go, and depending on the color of the lightning and what you decide to do with it, you can make it feel very cinematic, and maybe that's why they choose to do those things. But now that I really think about it, it really doesn't need lightning all the time. I think what you say is true. I would like to see how fast he's running without getting distracted by the lightning, because as pretty and as neat as it may be to see on screen, sometimes with too much lightning, it can get far too distracting. And I love how you even went into the math of the situation, because when you think about it, how fast does he need to be running every single time to be squeezing out that much power to form lightning as he runs? I'm sure he's not running at that speed every single time he runs in general, so maybe he shouldn't be having the lightning all the time unless they wanted to all of a sudden give him lightning capabilities. And like you said, and like many other people were saying, how powerful he can be starts to diminish who he actually is. You start to take away the human side of the Flash, which at the end of the day, we do watch these characters for who they are as Flash, as Superman, as Wonder Woman, as Batman. But it is always good to remember where they came from before they became those characters. And yes, whereas the Kingdom Come storyline is awesome, we can't see a Flash like that all the time. We still need to see his human side. He still needs to be challenged and tested. But once again, thanks to Edward for being on this video. Hope to do this again soon. For my bold opinion and hot take, and I don't actually know if this is a bold opinion, I feel like a lot of people in the community today, I feel like a lot of people could actually agree with me on this. The Flash needs to stop being a glorified universe resetter. He needs to stop being looked at as the character who can just revert time or change the timeline because people don't like the direction it's going in, or writers want to start fresh and creatives want to do something different, so they use him as the plot device to change everything all over again. That's not to take away that you can't use a story where he does that. That's not to take away the fact that he's powerful and fast enough to do it. It's just it has to stop being so common. And also too, with the whole idea of time travel and what the Flash can do within dimensions and worlds, if you change one thing, it changes everything around you. But this is comic books. You can get around that realism. You can make this as fictitious as you want it to be. Maybe doing those stories with the Flash where he's constantly changing time and history. Maybe he can have a story where he only affects it for himself and he doesn't always need to affect the entire DC universe. But there you go, guys. That's that. That's my opinion, and that is some of your opinions. Some might be bold, some might not be. It depends on what side of these spectrums that we each lie on. If you did not have the chance to voice your unpopular opinion on the post, you can do it now in the comment section for this video. And I will also be posting the picture of another DC character very soon, if I haven't already, where we will do their unpopular opinions next. So that is it for this one, everyone. But until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.